ready for the next episode. Can't wait to get home and turn my TV on. I'm ready for the next episode. Got my snap shoes off, no remote control. I'm ready for the next episode.
Hi, guys. Welcome to our next episode. I'm your host, Nick,
And I'm Jess.
and today we're going to be talking about Average Joe. The show actually started out on BET Plus, and now you can currently find it on Netflix. So, Jess, can you give us a synopsis of the show?
Yeah, so Average Joe is about a regular guy, a plumber from Pittsburgh, who is trying to basically grieve the loss of his father. It starts off at the father's funeral at his home, and he ends up finding out a lot of information about his dad after he dies. He finds out his dad had a whole secret double life. He has apparently been running drugs for the Russian mob and has stolen, I want to say, $10 million from them and a Lambo. And
And a
so,
Lambo.
and a Lambo, don't forget the Lambo. And so the show takes place with basically Joe finding out that information, then him, his friends, and his family kind of going through all these different antics and all these different things, trying to both find the money and deal with the Russian mafia. So it's incredibly entertaining, fun ride. I really enjoyed the show.
And so, one of the things that we talked about when we were discussing the show is the quality of the show.
Yeah,
So, it's a BET Plus show, but honestly, it can stand up against any network show. The
absolutely.
production, writing, like they really did an excellent job with this
Agreed.
show.
Completely agreed. That was one of the things I was so excited about because I end up, I don't, at this point, I really don't watch BET that often anymore because to me, the quality of the shows have come down a lot since back in, way back in the day before when Bob Johnson still owned it. So I ended up just watching this show because I think my mom wanted to watch it. And so I sat down with her and watched that and a few other shows on BET. And I was really pleasantly surprised at how well the show was. I was like, hold on, first of all, these are real cameras. Y'all use real cameras. It doesn't look like it was shot in somebody's basement. This is this. It looks so good. The people look good in the show. Oh my goodness! So I was already taken in by that. I was like, okay, mom, let's do this. Let's watch this. And then you get really pulled in really quickly to the storyline and following just all the ups and downs that go. So I was really really pleased with this one.
So the show stars Dion Cole, and I honestly think that he did a great job. Honestly, I feel like a lot of times comedians make the best actors. They
Mhm.
do, and so the show is a,
Grapple.
you called it a dark comedy.
I think it's a dark. Yeah, I would say it's a dark comedy.
Yeah, so there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of action, but the show is funny.
Yeah.
It is. It's a funny show. So yeah, I kudos to him. I think this is his first like starring role in a TV
Yeah.
show.
Yeah,
He
because I
did
mean
an excellent job.
he did an excellent job. Yeah, you've seen him in a lot of things. Been doing stand up forever. He's in the show Blackish. Is probably one of his most prominent roles that people remember him from. This is the first show that I've seen that's focused on him, where he's the star of the show. I love a comedian in a dramatic role. I love it. I think people underestimate how much talent it takes just to be a comedian and just to be a funny person. So to me, when
Mhm.
I see a comedian in a dramatic role, I'm like, I already know you're bringing a lot to the table. So I'm excited to see it. Plus, I also just personally, my own personal bias, I feel like comedians make the best storytellers anyway, in general. So yeah, I feel like they can really kind of tell the story through their character, and I feel like he did a good job.
I just think that it's really interesting to start a comedy at a funeral because literally this show opens up at a funeral, but it allows you to kind of like meet the main characters and understand like their relationship to Joe. So it was it's a very interesting way to start a show. But what was this show is very real in a sense that like it's called Average Joe because it's not really fantasy. Like they are like an average black middle class family. It
Absolutely.
is very easy to put yourself in their shoes.
Mhm.
which I feel like makes it easy to judge them and the decisions that they make, because you could easily see like, okay, well, if I was in this situation, like, no, I would do this or I would do that. But it's funny because it's very much outside of the realm of fantasy. Like
Yeah.
the way that they speak to each other, the way they interact with each other, it is so on point culturally. Like,
That's the other thing that I liked about it is that it's not about them being black. Not that there's anything wrong with a show being about people being black, but it's not about them being black. The focus is really on the thing that they're going through with the funeral. However, it still feels genuinely black, and it doesn't feel stereotypical or campy. And so that's
right.
the kind of jokes that they make, the way that they talk to each other is like, yeah, this is how we talk to each
Right. It's like, oh, someone just like literally put a camera in my house.
other. Right.
That's how we talk to each other. And
Hmm.
so yeah, I thought that it was good, but it does to me explore some specific black themes,
Hmm.
not in a direct way, but indirectly,
Hmm.
like it does explore some common black themes. So like we talked about, the show starts off at his father's funeral, and so, although they were not selling fish plates or chicken plates to pay for his funeral, you can tell like that money is an issue.
It's
They're
tight.
making it, but that's it.
Yeah, they
You
barely
know,
make
they
it.
don't have a
Mhm.
lot of room for error. And so when the father dies, you know, they didn't come into money. Like you never hear them say, "Oh, you know what, we need to read his will. Oh, we're going to get, you know, some property or anything like that." And I think that's very common when
Mhm.
it comes to like black American families. A lot of times when someone dies, you're getting a bill.
Yeah.
More so than like an inheritance.
Mhm.
And so I think that they made that point and showed that point with like once again making it subtly. Like
Mhm.
black people will understand. Like when
Yeah.
his
We
father
will.
died, he got problems.
Mhm.
That's what we a lot of times we inherit problems, issues in situations,
Mhm.
and not necessarily like money and
It
property.
reminds me of that song "Papa Was a Rolling Stone," and it goes and it's talking about the father died, and when he died, all he left us was alone. And
Yes,
I never knew if they meant like he left us alone by himself or literally alone, because it really could be either.
it was probably both.
It probably was
He
both.
he didn't sound like the best man, so I always assumed that it was both. He left them alone
Alone
and with
and
a
alone.
loan.
Right, exactly. And so like that's also where it feels really relatable. And I feel like they took something that is common for a lot of black families, like there's chaos after a funeral. And then they like dramatized it and made it even more fantastical. Because there's a lot of times funerals, I know funerals in my family, it's just it's chaos and craziness and where is this? We can't find that, and people are trying to figure out what they're gonna do to kind of get this person buried and all this kind of stuff, and there's a lot of drama, and they took it to that next level adding the secret life piece.
Yes. His his father was a very interesting
It
character.
was.
So as the show progresses, you kind of learn more and more about his father. So his father had a tow truck business. And so the tow truck business, I guess he was towing cars and he was stowing drugs in the car to help transport it for the Russian mafia. Now his son knew nothing about this.
Nothing.
His
No,
dad
no, nothing.
was like fairly popular, seemed like a very upstanding citizen, a business owner, close friends with police officers, you know, and so his dad had this entire life. And what made it interesting was, you know, once the like Russian mafia come after Joe because they want to get their money, like Joe immediately decides, oh, you know what? I'm essentially going to pick up where my father left off. His dad stole $10 million and he stole a Lamborghini. He's like, oh, I'm going to find it.
Hmm.
And I don't think that is the normal reaction.
Hmm.
But it's a very black reaction because once again, his father died and did not leave him with anything, and he's in a
Mm-mm.
tight financial space. So immediately he's like, oh, you know what, this is an opportunity for me to change the course of my family's life and the life of my friends. And so I'm like, if he did not have that financial pressure on him, he might have made different decisions,
Yeah.
because that would not have been my first thought. Was, you know what,
Mm-hmm.
let me try to find this money and find this car, especially when you know that there are people coming after you.
Hmm. See, I don't know because I'm like I can't think of this. Like I was thinking, I'm thinking about this. There's no way I could know there's $10 million out there and not look for it. Now, the only thing where I think I would have made a different decision is that I after the two people. So initially, when you so after the funeral, he goes to his father's office to clean out the office, and he gets basically jumped by two Russian mobsters. One of which happens to be his daughter's boyfriend. And
Okay.
so he's surprised to find out that this kid is actually part of the Russian mafia. But anyway, like I would have called the police. He ends up having to kill those two people, of course, because they're trying to kill him. They're torturing him, and he ends up having to kill those two characters. I would have called the police because I don't want nothing to do with murder. But I would not have told them about that money. I ain't gonna lie. I would not.
I
I'm like, I
I
don't know why they're in here. They just came in here. I had to defend myself, self defense. You see it, you know it. I don't know why they're here.
I would have also called the police. I I probably wouldn't have told them about the money either,
Hmm.
because I wouldn't want to first of all, I wouldn't want to tarnish my father's reputation. He's dead.
Hmm.
Second of all, I don't want to be implicated in something that has nothing to do with me. So
Listen,
I would only, you give the police just enough
just
information.
enough
I
information. I don't know why they came up in here. I think they were trying to rob me.
Right,
I don't know why they're here, but I know
right,
they broke my fingers, and so I had to defend myself.
right.
The feds
So yeah,
listen. What
I
money?
don't I don't understand why they
Mhm.
didn't call the police. Because honestly, I agree with you. They could have called the police and waited for things to calm down,
And then look for
and
the
then
money.
at some point look for the money later. But to me, another issue I had is, like, they live in a town,
Hmm.
right, where all of this chaos is going on, and they think that they're going to find that $10 million, but also continue to live in the same city.
I
Like,
don't understand why they want, but only the guys want to live in the same city. All the women are like, let's go. Let's be out. At some point or another, the women are like, let's go. Kathy's like, we not staying here. Um, which is his one of his best friend's wife. Kathy is one of his best friend's wives. Um, I don't know why the men want to stay in this little small town. No, and first of all, you still gonna like even if you call in the police, it doesn't solve everything. Like this is still the mafia. You get rid of some of them, there's more coming. So you cannot stay in the same place you are. But why would you want to?
it's not safe. Like, they don't
Mhm.
crime well. I
They
personally feel
don't.
like
They don't know
they
how to
don't
do
crime
crimes.
well.
Well, except for Kathy, Leon's wife. So Leon, there's Joe. Leon is one of his best friends. He has two best friends, Leon and Touch. Um, Leon's wife's name is Kathy. Kathy does crimes well. That's it.
So Kathy is a true crime junkie,
Hmm.
which felt very relatable because I went through a very strong true crime phase.
Yeah,
And so
I think it's a rite of
she
passage.
does understand. I feel like she does understand crime even more than Touch, who is a police officer.
Yes.
So yeah, so this crew of would be criminals is
Hmm.
Joe the plumber, Leon, who runs a hardware store with his wife Kathy, who's being their store is currently being demolished by like Home Depot and Lowe's, trying to put them out of business. They have Touch, who is like their good friend. He's a police officer. He's actually he's the white main character. So everybody else, all the other main characters other than the Russian mafia, like all the quasi criminals, are all black except for Touch. He is a police officer and he's white. And then you have Joe's wife, who is a paralegal turned waitress because she suffers from a disease that makes it really hard for her to work. And then they have their daughter, who just turned 18, who was dating the mobster. Can I tell you, the first thing that got on my nerves was their daughter.
Yeah, she got on my nerves too.
And like, here's the thing. I can understand being young, and
Hmm.
I can understand being in love. And that first love, it hits different. It's like a drug. it's like a narcotic. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But from the moment that your father says, "Hey, your boyfriend broke into your grandfather's office and broke my fingers and my arm because he was trying to get information about your grandfather," like he's no longer your boyfriend, right?
Right.
He's an enemy of our family.
Mm-hmm.
But she's just like, "Oh my God, Dad, you killed my boyfriend. Oh my God, Dad, you chopped my boyfriend up." And I'm just like, do you want your father to be dead?
Right. Right. But I'm like, okay, okay. So mind you, I agree with you. Honestly, she got on my nerves. She asked too many questions. You know, but to be fair to the character, her boyfriend, who she's in love with, just died, and she finds out that her father is the one that killed him. But she did get on my nerves the same way. And you know what I think? I like when I really, really thought about it, and I do, and I actually think that like her character gets on my nerves, but I feel like her character needed to act exactly the way that she acted. Like I think they did a good job of writing her. I think the difference is, and why we have such a hard time watching her, is like it is that she's that first generation child out of the hood, like. She didn't grow up the way
Mhm.
they grew up. She got a lot more answers to her questions, a lot more patience, or what have you, which produces a child who is a little bit more, I don't know if emotionally stable is the right word, but like at least more communicative about their emotions.
Mhm.
And she was that, and so she asked questions. We were taught, don't ask questions about the small stuff, don't talk back about the small stuff. So when she's talking back or asking questions at a time where it's like a heightened sense of what's going on, it is so frustrating to watch. You're like,
It
shut up,
is.
this is not the time, we supposed to be running, or
She
we're supposed to be.
went to the police station. Your dad has already explained in detail that this man tried to kill him.
Mm-hmm,
This man tortured your dad. Why are you going to the police station?
mm-hmm.
Like that, like I understand like you being upset that your boyfriend died, but
Right.
at this point you are choosing this man over your dad. And your
Mm-hmm,
dad said, "Hey, he basically told me that once he killed me, he was coming after you and your mom." And she's like, "I loved him."
mm-hmm. Right.
It,
It took her too long to get to the fact that he wasn't good. Like, and I get it, not immediately, because like your brain is trying to process with all the stuff that you think is true versus so she doesn't get it immediately, but she still takes way too long to get the fact that
did she
this
get
dude is
there?
not.
Did she get there? I don't know that she ever
She got
did.
better.
She got on board with finding the
The
money.
money.
But
She
I
got
think
better.
she kept saying,
He
"I
loved
think
me.
Demetrius really loved me. He really
He was
loved
trying to
me."
protect me from his father. No, he wasn't, sweetie. He was using you to get to your dad. He absolutely was. Um, she takes too long to get there. Going to the police, yeah, I think that was way too. Like, who does that? We never go. Like, you know what I mean? Like, while I disagree with Joe and them's decision not to go to the police at the beginning, especially not touch your friend, your best friend is a white police officer. I would have
Yes,
called touch
immediately. But the problem is
immediately.
that I think Touch is literally the most unethical cop ever written.
He is, but you still want him on your side in this situation.
I agree. I would have
Mhm.
still called him.
I would have called him.
But I wonder, like by the time Touch, because Touch actually does show up
Mhm.
at Joe's dad's garage and he's, explaining to them what they need to do. But by the time that Touch shows up, they've already decided that they're going to look for the money.
Right.
But
And
in,
dispose of the bodies, I believe.
Right. But Touch is like so down. They're like, "Hey, we know that you don't want to be a part of it." He's like, "No, no, I definitely want to be a part of it." And it made me feel like if they had not made that decision when Touch got there, he would have convinced them anyway
Hmm.
because he was so down to do crimes.
He was down to do crimes. He absolutely was down to do crimes. But no, I'm saying like I I disagree with that choice in the beginning. However, I do fully understand why they still didn't call the police. You know what I mean? Just being, because it's always dicey with us having to deal with the police, and you always have
We
to
d-
consider that, like, with like you're not necessarily going to get treated like everybody else will get treated if you call the police. So while I disagree with that choice, I understand it. But
Right. I
her
right. I
running up
would
to
have
the
called the
police
police.
later on in the show, that didn't make girl who
Insane.
What was you gonna do?
Insane.
And you run into the police department screaming. What were you
Yeah.
about to do?
She was very irrational. She was
Mhm.
irrational. I'm sorry, she was irrational throughout the whole show. Even when she got on board with the
Oh, that's
plan,
true.
she still, and I think
She still made horrible decisions.
the show tried to frame it as she wasn't being respected and her voice wasn't being listened to. So even when she had good ideas, like they were like overlooking her and they weren't
Shutting them down.
respecting her. And I agree
Mhm.
that she had, I think, maybe one good idea,
Yeah,
and they did overlook her, they did ignore her, but that was it. Everything else she did was counterproductive.
it was.
It
It
was counterproductive. And I'm like, well, maybe you didn't earn the right to be listened to, because we don't know what you're going to do because you went to the police station.
Mhm.
Ugh.
And then you tried to attack one of the, one of the witnesses at the police. What is wrong with you? And again,
Oh, yes.
if Touch had not been there and grabbed her, if that had been any other police officer, if that had been
Hmm.
any other police officer, and that's the disconnect that doesn't make sense. Because, sweetie, you know you black. You don't run
Absolutely.
in the police office demanding or screaming anything.
Well, but you know what? Once again, I think you, like you said, she grew up very sheltered, and
Hmm.
she does not have those same feelings that we
Yeah.
have. She grew up with all of the freedom, all of the you can do anything,
Hmm.
so she doesn't have that inherent distrust of the police.
Hmm.
But like this group of people, like I personally feel like they are terrible criminals.
They,
They're terrible. And you know what? Like I can appreciate that
they
because
should be because they are just
right,
regular people. Like,
they
so if they were
are.
good at crimes, you know what I mean? That would be a problem.
So they, as they're going and searching for this money, they are amassing bodies like
Left and
crazy.
right.
So Joe gets attacked and he ends up killing two people with the help of, I think Leon comes in and saves him.
Yeah. I wouldn't
Yeah,
say
Leon,
saves, but
but
assists.
assists. Leon assists. So that's two bodies right there at the
Mhm.
gate.
At the beginning, episode
And
one.
so then, yeah, so then, like the Russians track Leon because Leon has one of their phones. They actually go to Leon's house and they try to kill Leon, and Leon's wife Kathy shoots them. So now we're up to three dead bodies,
Hmm.
and I think this is within the span of probably 24 hours.
Yeah.
There's a total of three dead bodies
Hmm.
that need to be disposed of,
Yeah. His
and
dad is not
so
cold in the ground yet.
no, no. You know what? Which would have been, which is funny,
Hmm.
like depending on how many days ago his dad would have had been buried, it might have made more sense to dig up their dad's grave and put the bodies in there, because
Hmm.
who's going to look for a body in a grave?
True. That
That
makes
probably would have made more sense.
that would have made more
But
sense.
instead, they use Kathy's idea, which is to cut the bodies up, smear them in peanut butter, and throw them in the woods for animals to find and eat.
Yes.
And honestly, the plan is a lot. It's a lot.
It is a lot.
But the plan would have worked. But her husband, Leon, carelessly throws the head onto a golf course that was adjacent to the woods.
Hmm.
Now, personally, I would have checked the map and I wouldn't have chosen woods that was close to a golf course.
Hmm.
That doesn't
I
make
don't think
sense.
he throws it on the golf course. He throws it in the woods, but it's just not deep enough, so the animals drag it to the golf course.
Right.
Hmm.
But I just feel like, once again, you're not criming well,
No.
because why would you choose woods that are close to a golf course?
Hmm.
Like, you don't even,
Why
I
would you
wouldn't even
choose
put it.
woods that are in your town? Quite honestly,
That is very true. They do everything within
everything is in Pittsburgh.
their town, and it does not make sense to
No,
me. Like, you can't live, work, and shoot people in the same area. You have to spread that out.
you got to spread that out. Now, like, from the beginning too, like when I said just them doing crimes badly, and I know like initially they're like, okay, we're not going to tell any of the women, blah blah blah, blah. We're just going to handle this ourselves and tell nobody, and of course all the women end up finding out. But the reason
Mhm.
why you don't let men do crimes alone is because all the decisions are dumb. You know what I mean? So like you take these two bodies that you put them in your work van, you know, with
Mhm.
all the bodily fluids that are starting to leak. You carry them to your house with their cell phones that are pinging, and like people can trace them back to your house. So that's how the Russians ended up finding both of them, is that the two cell phones, Leon stole one cell phone, which was dumb. Because what are you gonna do with the cell phone?
Right.
And then the other cell phone was still on Dimitri's body.
Turned up so loud.
So loud. So
He didn't even turn the ringer off, and the phone has a very distinct ringer.
loud. Hmm.
And so the daughter is calling her boyfriend, as she's been calling him all day. She literally hears the phone go off in the van, and that's when she finds his body. Which,
Hmm.
yes, that is a traumatic way to
It
find the
is.
body.
It
It
is.
is. It is. And so I understand your initial reaction. I'm going to stop calling that girl
Yeah.
dumb.
I
I'm
know.
going to stop.
Right.
But like, so yes, you found out in a traumatic way, and I feel bad for that. But your dad is not good at crimes, because that phone should not be with the body.
Should
It
never be.
definitely should not be turned on. Why is that phone not broken apart, the SIM card thrown somewhere? Like,
Hmm.
come on, it's
Right. If
2024.
anything you were going to throw in a body of water, it is the phone. It's
Right,
dismantle,
absolutely.
throw it, corrupt it so that it can't be, and then throw it, you know. And you want to, again, put this in a place as far away from your home as possible.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
You
Yes.
don't take all, so to me, I'm like, y'all are dragging all the stuff, and it's obvious that you're dragging all the stuff to the house. You know,
Right.
or you know, yeah, letting everybody know where you live. And then there's already the connection. I feel like regardless, they would have come for them because like your father was running drugs for them. So like the first thing they're gonna do is check his son, of course. Um,
Right.
but
So
you
at
don't want to
this
give them nothing
point,
extra.
the show becomes like a scavenger hunt, where they're doing everything they can to find like the money and the car before the Russian mafia finds them. They don't. The Russian mafia is very efficient,
Very
and
efficient.
finds them time and time and time again, because
Constant.
once again, these people do not crime well,
Mm-mm. With the exception of Kathy.
with the exception of Kathy. So
Kathy's the best out of all of them. Now, not all of her
she,
ideas are winners, but a good percentage of them are.
but okay, so so let's talk about the scavenger hunt aspect,
Hmm.
right? So there, Joe's father leaves clues. For example, like in the safe, there was $100,000, and there was a safety deposit key.
Hmm.
Joe had no idea what bank the safety deposit box went to.
Hmm.
And the only reason why he ended up finding the safety deposit box was because Kathy used to work at that bank.
Hmm.
But if Kathy did not work at that bank, how was Joe going to, like, how long would it have taken him to find the safety deposit box? His dad is the worst at scavenger hunts. His dad's a terrible person, and we'll get more into that later. But just for the scavenger hunt aspect,
Hmm.
I'm like you are supposed to leave clues that people can follow. You're just dropping random stuff. So there's a key for a safety deposit box. Because of Kathy, he finds out the safety deposit box. In the safety deposit box, there's a compass
Hmm.
and there's a key to the Lambo, right? And so then he has to figure out that the Lambo is at the place where where he used to hide when his dad used to torture him as a kid,
Yes. Yeah.
essentially.
Hmm.
So he figures that out, and so they get the Lambo thinking, oh, this Lambo is going to have $10 million in it, which $10 million is a lot of physical money.
It is.
And sometimes I don't feel like the show really understands
Hmm.
that $10 million it's heavy, and it's a lot of physical money,
Hmm.
because that, like, a Lamborghini would be the worst place to put $10 million,
Hmm.
because like they don't have much of a trunk. It's a very slim. I'm just like, I never believed the money was in that car because it didn't make sense.
It it didn't, but I'm like, well, once they kind of they threw out, Leon actually had a good idea that wasn't accurate, but it was still a good idea, was like check the
Mhm.
tires, because you can hide and pack things in tires. So I was like, if
You
anything, it
can.
would have to be packed inside of the tires and then underneath the thing that you usually put the jack in for the trunk. There's ways, like maybe underneath the seats or something. There's ways to do it. So
Think
because this is,
not in a way, not in a way that would pass any kind of test. Like if you're getting pulled over and
yeah.
you're transporting something, drugs, money,
Mhm.
guns, whatever, it has to pass through an inspection. $10 million in a Lamborghini,
Mhm. It's a
it would be
stretch, but
very
it's
hard.
whatever. Um, I don't know, because like if you're getting pulled over, unless you're crossing like country lines, like you know what I mean? Like they have to have a warrant, a reason to search your car.
They do, but
Because like
probable
even
cause is
even okay,
very
skipping ahead
easy.
a little bit, when Kathy does get pulled over by the police, I'm like, girl, you watch the crime shows, tell them no, because they're gonna
Mhm.
push and make it seem like that you have to, or you're gonna get in trouble. You don't. But honestly, if they don't have a warrant and you're not being detained, then no, you cannot search my vehicle. And the answer is always no, you cannot search my vehicle. So the
The
same
answer is
thing.
always no.
So the
But if they
same
have probable cause, and a
and then
lot of times
take
they
that
will.
probable cause and go get a warrant. Take that probable cause and go get a warrant. And if not, then this whole thing. And if you don't, you do it anyway, which for black people in the police, they might. Okay, then now I get a lawyer, and this is fruit of the poisonous tree because you didn't do the search correctly. And so none of this is admissible. Huh? I'm
Crime
just saying,
shows.
if
Fruit of
we're
the
gonna do
poisonous
crime,
tree.
let's do crimes well.
I feel like if you're gonna do anything, do it well, crimes included. I do.
Okay,
So
exactly.
so they eventually find the Lamborghini and
No
there's no
attention.
money.
Right.
There's no money in the Lamborghini. And so let's see. I'm trying to think where the next clue is.
Mm-hmm.
It's videotapes, right?
I don't remember
It's
videotape.
something having to do with football. So that
No,
I
it's the two license plates.
the license plate.
But
Okay, so the
I feel like
license
there's a lot of space between that clue and when we get the next clue. Like I feel like that's several episodes later. But she
it is.
eventually sees the license plates together, and it's a license plate of a with a team member's number that he doesn't like and one that he does. And they're like, he would never have this, and that's how they know that it means something.
Yes, but that's the point I'm trying to make. They find the Lamborghini, but it takes them so long to put together the next clue because this is the world's worst scavenger hunt. I don't understand, like, because once again, Joe is not aware of the things that his father does. Joe does not live that life.
Right.
Like, he's not a criminal.
Hmm.
Why would you expect him to have like these
That
criminal
criminal
tendencies
mindset. And I
to
think
put it
that's
together?
so I think, okay, going back to explain a little bit more about the father. Like the father, this is not new for Joe in the sense of the father has been setting him up on scavenger hunts, dropping him off in the woods and making him find his way home. He's been doing this Joe's entire life. So I think in Teddy, which Teddy is the name of the father, is mine. I've been preparing you for this all along. You know what I mean? To be able to solve these clues and get this scavenger hunt. That doesn't mean it's accurate, but I think that that's what he's thinking. He's like, oh, I've been setting this up for a long time so that you can work through. You know how to work through clues. You know how to find stuff. Because when Teddy was a kid, I mean, when Joe was a kid, Teddy would drop him off in the woods and make him find his way home.
But
Leaving clues
okay,
for different
so
things.
like I get that,
Hmm.
but these clues are once again they're terrible. They're terrible clues. And on top of that, Joe and Teddy did not have the best relationship.
Hmm.
Like it started as a child when he was essentially, let's call it what it was, abusing him.
Yeah.
And he actually, Joe ended up like missing his mom's death because his dad had dropped him in the woods. And the mom is like fussing at the dad about, why would you go and get him? Why you have him wander around in the woods at night? It's cold. And the mom ends up dying before Joe even makes it back. And their relationship has not seemed to improve since then. It sounds like, I think that the dad may have had a good relationship with his granddaughter. Sounds like he doted on her a bit,
Hmm.
but like Joe, that they never. they never became close. They never got to see eye to eye. I don't think Joe ever felt like his dad respected him, or really really cared about him.
Hmm.
And so that once again makes it even weirder that he did this, because Joe wouldn't even expect it. He was not prepared for it at all.
Hmm.
And also, like, this is another thing, like, that I don't think I really thought about before. His father, even though they didn't get along, his father just died. He's not in the best place emotionally when this stuff happens, and maybe that informs some of his absolutely terrible decisions.
Probably. Probably. But also, like, his father never cared about his feelings. Like, his father
No.
felt making him tough, making him be able to get out of any situation, making him, I guess, in his mind, he thought these things were making him safe. I don't know. But like, was more important than anything else. Like, he never cared about Joe's emotions because he intentionally, like Joe says towards the end, says, like, he loved me from afar just to make sure I wasn't weak. Yeah, the idea of him being weak was worse than anything, so he put
Mhm.
that above everything else. Like, all of these little tests and leaving him in the woods and all this kind of stuff was in Teddy's mind to make him tough. I'm not saying I agree with it or it's right, but I'm saying I think that that's that continued line of thinking.
And okay, so we find the next clue. The next clue actually leads Joe back to his house,
Mhm.
to find that there's like some money hidden there. More bodies pile up. But that is only like $1 million. So at this point, they've found like $1.1 million.
Mhm.
And at this point, they've probably killed 5 or 6 people in the process.
Mhm.
And the Russian people have also probably killed some folks. So, like,
Several people.
at this point, around 7 people have died. That's crazy. Like, there's so much collateral damage in this
Mhm.
show that I'm just like, okay, at what point do we say maybe this is not worth it?
The point where we find it $10 million.
But how many, like, literally, how many people have to die?
The people they killed were part of the Russian mafia. Them two homeowners that got killed went in, like, none of us are gonna pretend like we said that them two that them two died. They were
No.
obnoxious and they didn't kill them. Like, so them dying was them own their own obnoxiousness and feeling
Hmm.
like entitled to barge into them people's house.
Yeah, that was Joe's boss and Joe's boss wife, who treats
Yeah.
them like
What are
the
their
scum
names?
on the bottom of their shoe.
You know,
Don't make me remember
Winnie?
those people's names.
Stan and Winnie, I think.
So yes. So yeah, okay, yeah. I wasn't heartbroken when they died.
So up to 7 people, you got like five Russian mafia and two entitled assholes.
The peanut butter guy died,
That's the
and
only one I feel bad
even
about.
okay. Also, I'm going to tell you who I feel bad for, and I'm going to tell you that you're not going to feel bad for them.
Hmm.
I feel bad for the 2 people who found the head, because they ended up dying because they found the head on the golf course, and they were like on the news, and they were like playing with the head, and they weren't taking it seriously. They were being very, very disrespectful to the dead body, and so Dimitri's father kills them in retaliation. And I understand that they were wrong, but that head should have never been on the golf course. And so I feel bad that they ended up being tortured to death. And I know because they were jerks, you're like, I don't feel bad.
Who does that?
It was crazy.
Who does
It
that? Because
was.
I think, and mind you, I wouldn't put it past nobody because I know people would, they like put everything on social media, but it definitely would not be my first to find something like that and then want to film it and put it on TV and then have somebody's loved one discover that their person has died that way. That's why
And it's
now,
covered in peanut
now
butter.
I'm a little squeamish when it comes to blood, guts, and gore. So can I watch the scene where he's torturing them? No. Do I feel bad? Hmm.
So like that's like there so yes, those like that is just like that's 5 people who died, and on top of all the Russian mafia people who died.
The only person
That's
I
a
feel
lot.
bad for is Apple. Apple didn't deserve to die.
That's the guy who owned the peanut butter store.
Mhm. Yes.
And so I don't know, like, so to me, like, that kind of really made me stop and think. I'm like, okay, at this point, is it really worth it? There's so much collateral damage, and like
But how do you stop at
every
this point? You know what I mean? Like, so, like, and this is my thing. So, like, I feel like Joe gets a lot of flack from a lot of the different characters. And I get it. Everybody's heightened in a sense of, like, Tizzy, because all this stuff is going on. But, like, this is dropped in Joe's lap. And what are you supposed to do? Because you stop looking for the money doesn't mean that they're going to stop coming for you.
no, but he could have went to the police. He could have got his wife and daughter out of town
That's the only
immediately.
thing. Like, I feel like the wife and daughter should have got out of town immediately. That's the other thing about, like, not doing crimes well. The wife and daughter need to be someplace else, at some other family member's house that we don't usually talk to, or something like that. They need to be gone. They should have got out because they're not helping anyway. The wife is sick. She's got polymyalgia, and so she can only physically take so much. She needs to be somewhere with her medicine, with her feet rested up, feet up,
Right.
resting. The
Yeah.
daughter is just generally not helpful.
She's not. I dislike her so much.
She's not helpful. So let's get her on out the way. It needs to be Kathy and the men.
Yes,
Kathy
Kathy
is
being
necessary.
Kathy as the leader.
Kathy went
I
from
agree.
my least favorite character in the first episode to my favorite character in the second episode.
Yes, agree. The first episode, I'm like, what?
Whoa,
What? I'm like, ugh, right?
what's wrong with
And
this
I'm
chick?
just,
Second
I'm like,
episode, I ain't gonna lie. After she said that line, like, so she has to, the end of the first episode, she ends up killing the guy the Russian guy that comes into her house. Second episode, she brings him to Joe's house and is fussing at Joe, like, what have you gotten us into, basically. But when I tell you, the line that killed me is when he fussed at her, called her light skin, and she said, what are you talking about, light skin? Your wife looked like Jennifer Aniston from the back. I was done. I
done.
was done
Best line of the entire
of
show.
the
And that,
entire show.
and see, that is the kind of stuff that makes this show like very culturally black, because
Mhm.
that is exactly how we
We
talk
talk
to
to
each
each
other.
other. And
I die, and I kept every shot of the back of his wife's head.
girl,
Every
every time,
time.
every time I saw her, anytime she had that blonde on with the little wave, and I was like, I just would stop and start laughing because I was like,
Yes,
went back to Jennifer Aniston from the back.
yes.
That was
That line
hilarious.
stuck with me the entire show. That was one of the best lines
Completely
of
agreed.
the show. And
Yes, one of the best lines.
I died. I died laughing. But
Mhm.
yes, I feel like the people who got onto Joe were justified, because there was a lot of selfishness in his actions,
Mhm.
because he poised it like, oh, I'm doing this to take care of our family. I'm doing this to make our lives better. But if he was really real with himself, he felt like he needed to prove something to his father. And that's what this whole thing was about. Even the way that he handled the situations,
Mhm.
everything, he was trying to prove something to his dad. And he put his wife, his daughter, and his closest friends in even more danger. Now, when they found out that there was $10 million involved, they were down for
Yeah,
some
like
for a
four
certain
times.
amount of danger.
Mhm.
But ultimately, I honestly feel like if the show started out and it was just $1 million in a Lambo, the story would have went the same way. Because for
Mhm.
Joe, it was not necessarily about the amount of money. He was using the amount of money to justify his actions, but he wanted, because he was learning more about his father than he ever knew,
Mhm.
and he felt like his dad had essentially given him this challenge, and he wanted to live up to who his dad wanted him to be. And
Mhm.
it was irritating. I found that to be
You
very,
found that
very, very
That
irritating.
did not irritate me at all. Like, I don't even disagree with anything that you just said. Like, yeah, there's a certain element of, I want to prove it. I want to finally solve one of these puzzles that he's created for me. Especially with the context that he's grieving his dad is gone. However, I think I have a lot of sympathy for Joe because this to me, the situation was dropped in Joe's lap. And
Mhm.
none of us would, like, this wasn't something he went out and sought. This wasn't something he went to look for. This situation was dropped in his lap. And as much as we could say and do and yell back at the screen, should have done this at this moment. I would have done this. I would have done this differently. If any of us had been dropped, this situation dropped in our life, no, you don't really know what to do. You know what I mean? Like you don't really know what the right thing is to do. And I felt like, yeah, and you get into the cycle of just responding to the next thing,
Mhm.
because you like this is a crazy situation to be dropped in anybody's lap.
It is. It
And, so,
is.
and
But
I don't think like we, like again, we could say all the things about like what you would do, and of course we're going to, but at the end of the day, like nothing necessarily would have stopped the mafia from coming after them. You know what I mean? Like
I
they're calling
agree.
the police at the beginning, like because to me, like I'm like you like once, especially once the police knew that they were involved, they also should have put them in protective custody and didn't.
Mhm.
So I'm like, nothing was going to stop them from coming after them. You're still going to have to deal with this situation. And to me, this was a situation that was dumped on him that he had no choice about. And so it's
Mhm.
like, again, he's not a master criminal. He is just the average Joe. He is just a regular guy. He is a plumber. This is what he does. That's his expertise. So, no, I don't know what to do when all of a sudden these criminals are at my front door and I'm just scrambling trying to figure out what to do. And I think that's why I kind of like, I don't know. I take everything that he does with a grain of salt because I'm like, who knows what to really, what would have really been the best for them. Because, like, quite honestly, and then, okay, other thing, okay, just to back that up. So, at some point in the show, you realize that Nikolai, who is the head of the crime syndicate, is has like people everywhere. He's got police that work for him. The governor technically works for him. So again, even going into protective custody, like if the police had, or the FBI had, or the, whoever had actually done what they should have done and put him in protective custody, because y'all also should have been monitoring Nikolai. You
Mhm.
know, even if they never came to the police, y'all should have been monitoring him to know this stuff was going on anyway. Um, there's no that might not have even provided them safety.
Maybe not, but I just feel like there are things that he could have done to show that his family was the number one priority, and his family was not. He got like very much sucked in
Mhm,
to like this idea of essentially living the life that his dad was living,
mhm,
and like finishing out his dad's master plan. I feel like, and I'm just like, the reason everybody saw it, and that's why like there was like people were tearing him to shreds, because it's like, hey, like we're not equipped for this, we are not built for this,
mhm,
and Joe is just like constantly pushing, pushing, pushing,
mhm.
even like his wife is literally begging him like, stop,
She
stop,
got on my
stop.
nerves.
She also got on my nerves. We'll talk about that
Yeah.
in the next episode. I want to explore relationships in the next episode, like, because I think that's like a really interesting take that we can focus on.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So guys, we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
I'm ready for the next episode. Can't wait to get home and turn my TV on. I'm ready for the next episode. Got my snap shoes off, my remote control. I'm ready for the next episode. 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 I'm ready for the next episode.